Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen.
And I'm John Johnson.
And you're listening to Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. The podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. Today we are reading Fire Punch.
Fire Punch.
Fire Punch. I'll start by saying it is insane. And John, do you have any other words, adjectives that might describe this book?
I know going into this, you were like, we have to read this because it's a wild, insane book. And some people really love it. And we're going to see how we fare with it. Like, okay. Yeah, we'll take a look. Matt and I like really, really bad, horror movies or cult classic movies. So we're like, oh yeah, we'll we've heard this one that's like, some people really love it and some people really like it because it's crazy. And we're like, okay, well, yeah, let's take a look. And we'll get into it.
Yeah, well, I will say I read this, a week earlier just on my own because people were saying it was awesome. And I read it and was like, wow, what? Like, how did they get awesome from that? Because I would say, me and John like to watch bad movies, crazy movies, insane movies. Also, every now and then, those movies, we don't know what they're going to be before we watch them. Sometimes they end up being disturbing or shocking or fucked up movies. I would say this is in that category of a book. And I'm going to go on a limb and say I've never read a comic that was like this, mainly because there's usually editors that stop this kind of thing from happening. So it's this book reminded me of like honestly, it's like Serbian film level of comic.
Yeah, that's a pretty good. I think I would have to wholeheartedly agree with that.
Yeah. Now, if you haven't seen Serbian film, don't. But if you don't know what that is, you could just generally look up a synopsis of it, and a lot of the same things that happen in this movie happen in that movie happen in this book. So, I guess there's nothing left to say, but just to get into it and start. Where it begins on the first page. Oh, I should say the book is by someone named Tatsuki Fujimoto. So no offense to that guy. He was shooting his shot. I don't know. It says he's written other stuff. So I don't know if that stuff is like different than this, but just based on that, I'm assuming it must be like also crazy and insane. So, but
yeah, and we'll say no to the people who do love this. This is just our first initial shock value of like reading this and like not knowing what we're getting into.
Right. Well, there's that, and everybody, like what you like. We all like different stuff. This is just in book form was like what? So, like I said, I've watched a movie that's a couple hours long. That's crazy and disturbing and weird. Usually with other people, and we're laughing or we're like, what the fuck or whatever. But this was like me in a room reading a manga, and I was just like, what the fuck?
Just saying that, just a note on that. That's funny to think about that way, because like when you're watching a bad movie and something is like weird, disturbing, or cringy, you have another person to look over at and be on the same level with, and so you can both be like, this is like so weird and crazy and gross, right?
Yeah.
So that's okay. But when you're sitting in a room
yes.
reading this by yourself, and you're like, you have to look around and there's nobody, and you're like, oh, I almost feel like
gross,
awkward and like gross, like looking at this myself.
Creepy. Yeah, it'd be like if you found out I watched Serbian film on my own for fun.
Yeah.
Like that is how I feel like this book could be potentially, especially like I don't think it's this book necessarily is fully on that level, but I definitely feel it if it continues this way, look, he's gonna have to up the ante all the time, right? So like if it starts here where the fuck does it go? You know what I'm saying? It's on volume 8. That's the other thing. This is volume 1 we're reading. We apparently found out there's 8 volumes of this. So people have read it and wanted more.
People have enjoyed this.
Yeah. So unless somehow, maybe it's like Game of Thrones or something where it starts off super heavy and then it's like, okay, now that we got you, we can kind of mellow out on some of that stuff and more political intrigue and all that. So maybe it's like that. I don't fucking know. But we gotta get into it because they're like the listeners are gonna be like, what the fuck are they talking about? They won't get to it. Well, let's get to it. Okay. We start off. We're in the cold, in the winter. There's always winter, apparently, because this is a future world where there are people called the Blessed, and they have powers. It's basically like X-Men or something, right?
Yeah.
But one of them in particular, called the Ice Witch, has, I guess, put the world in total darkness and snow, and like made the world like an ice age or whatever. So, there's just starving people everywhere. In like small communities, and then there's like bigger cities we find out later on, but for the most part we're just focusing on these 2 kids. One of them is named Agni, and that's the brother, and he's like the older brother, and one of them's named Luna, and it's a sister. And it just starts off right away. Like the first page you're like, okay, there's 2 kids and it's cold. Second page is one of these kids is about to get his arm cut off. So Agni is about to get his arm chopped off by an axe that his little sister is using. And he's okay with it. And it turns out like that his power is that he can regenerate, and her power is also that she can regenerate, but she's slower than him.
Yeah, his takes like seconds usually to regenerate, or seconds to minutes, and then hers takes like hours to regenerate.
Right. It still hurts, but he can regenerate it in like a second. So like we find out that actually he lives in this nice little town, and he brings the people in the town his arms that he has cut off for meat. Like they chop like 30 arms off, they wrap them in butcher paper or whatever, and then they bring it to the old people that can't sustain themselves by hunting and stuff on their own. And they're like, well, thank you. I was needing my new re-up of arm meat. Thank you. Like, so what did you think of, okay, so I'll just start with this, John. What did you think of when you got to this page of like old people taking the arms? What the fuck were you like thinking?
So yeah, right away it's like, okay, so there's some cannibalism going on technically. Like, this is what they have to do to survive. So I'm like, okay, I'm on board with it. It's weird, but okay.
Right. That's what I was like, I was with you. I was like, okay, I mean, everybody's starving. They set up this world, and they can regenerate arms.
They're short on supplies. They're also the only like kids in town. Everybody else in this town is old.
Right. So they're the only ones who can actually provide anything at all.
Yeah.
And I guess instead of like hunting, because there's no animals and stuff really, they can just like kill, or they can just cut their arms off or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. They do make it clear that like she feels bad that she can't help more often with that. Because yeah, obviously her regeneration will be like, you get one arm for the day, and also she's skinnier and smaller.
Yeah.
And with him, he's older and larger, and then also he could just regenerate like 30 arms in a day. So no problem. When they go around the town, we do find like, okay, there's like literally dead old people that they like didn't bring their meat to fast enough, or we find out that they didn't want to eat. So they just had like a bucket full of arms that they threw away because they're like not cannibals.
Yeah, like I can't do this cannibal thing.
Yeah, they're like, we don't want to eat people, so we'll just be like, thank you. If I was that old man, he should have said like, hey, actually I'm all set. Like, I don't want to eat your arm the first time.
Yeah.
This kid's been cutting his arms off for no reason, and now you just have a house full of rotting arms.
Yeah, that's horrible.
So, and that's also food that they could have eaten. I mean, they can eat their own arm, I'm assuming, right? So,
I know they show them back at their house, and she's like, I made arm stew.
yeah, using your arm. That was when we get to the part where she's like, I made my soup, brother. It's using your arm muscles is great. I even put some potato in there. First off, I was like, where the fuck did you get a potato? It's Ice World. There ain't no potatoes in Ice World.
Potatoes. She had leftover potatoes. Yeah, there's like not much, little to no green anywhere, they were saying. So
yeah,
but I guess they have some rations of some sort.
Yeah, they have some Chunky's Campbell soup or whatever of potato soup.
I threw a little bit of that in there.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's just so weird. Like the concept of like, this is how we're going to start this comic. This guy cuts off his arms and feeds a village and himself with arms. Okay, I guess. Okay. I mean, okay, it's weird, but I'll let it happen. I'll allow it. And so then another weird thing happens. They are, they sleep in the same house because they're poor. They're little kids, or no, not little kids, but they're like, I'd say she's probably like,
he's 15, and so she's like 13.
Yeah, there you go. And so, they sleep in the same bed, and she pulls a weird move where she's like, let's cuddle together or whatever. And then she's like, will you make a baby with me?
Yeah, this was very weird. So like they're cuddling, and first it's just talking like, oh yeah, when things are better, we'll travel the world. He's like, yeah, that sounds good, sister. And then she's like, yeah, I love you, I'm gonna cuddle. And he's like, okay, cool. And she like kisses him, and he's like, okay, like, don't kiss me.
Yeah, I'm
That's
your brother.
Weird. I'm your brother. And then it escalates right away. She's like, will you make a baby with me?
Pause, brother. Jesus Christ. Yeah, basically they go through this whole like couple pages where he's like, what? We can't. We're siblings. Stop. No, I don't want to. We can't. And
yeah, she's like, no, we're gonna do this. We have to give it our all because we're the only young people in this village. And he's like, stop. But somehow the younger sister, who he already said was like younger, smaller, and weaker, is able to overpower him because he's like, no, stop. We should, because she rapes him. She jumps on top of him, and he's like, no, stop. I love you too, but and like it basically means he's like, he can't. Like that's what that word bubble of him like slowing down his speech and being like implies.
Yeah.
So we literally in the first like 10 pages of this have cutting off own limbs, cannibalism, and incest.
Yeah. What a way to start. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're just throwing this in there. And then so they just kind of like, yeah, that happens. And that's the other thing. There's no like this other than his protesting. There's no like other repercussions from the like it's just like, yeah, it's fine. And like
move on from it.
Yeah. Yeah, we just move on to like, the next day he's going hunting, and then he finds, I guess he was tired of cutting off his arms or something. And then so he's actually going hunting. Then he hears a plane. He's like, oh my God, there's an airplane heading for the village. And he goes and runs back to the village, and he sees soldiers are there. And the soldiers are kind of being mean to some of the older people. But they say like, hey, we're not here to like hurt you or anything. We're just here to take your supplies and leave. Like because we're like the soldiers. And they're like, but we need that to survive, and we're all old and everything. They're like, no. Like
you're old and gonna die, so we need them more because like there's also like there's fighting going on up north somewhere. We find out, but
yeah, and so. We meet the main, I guess, bad guy of this, or at least the initial main bad guy of this, and his name is Doma, and he's a special person. We'll say he's one of the blessed, as they call them. He's a mutant. He's got the X gene, and so his thing is he has fire as like his power or whatever. So, but he says they come from the town or the city of Behemdorg, which I was like, what the fuck? Like,
Lord of the Rings
merging.
town of
Yeah,
this.
they're just merging some two Lord of the Rings names together. But yeah, basically, he's just like, look, kid, we're gonna do this, but hey, why don't you come live with us in this town after all these old people are dead? You know,
Yeah.
come to the city and leave them here. Who cares?
I like how he's like, everything's great there. We definitely don't have slaves or anything like that.
Yeah. Don't worry, we don't enslave children and do anything weird to them. You
That's
just
a really
come with
interesting
us.
statement to make.
Yeah,
That kind of makes me think you have slaves.
Yeah, it's like if you're on a first date with someone and you're like, "Don't worry, I'm not a murderer." Well, I wasn't worrying about that until you said that, you know. And so, so while they're getting like they're waiting, he's talking to Doma.
Yeah.
Sorry, and I only read this once, and it was the week before. So if I get any names wrong, please correct me, John. I didn't want to reread it for this time. So, but
I understand.
Yeah. And so the soldiers go to collect all the supplies that they're stealing from this town, and they find just oodles of arms. We'll say like just
I love your description. Oodles of arms.
Yeah, just so many arms of people that they're like, holy shit, these old people are murdering everybody that comes into this village and eating them.
They're cannibals.
There's just so many arm bones. It's weird that they're only arms, but
But it's obviously they're eating people. So.
Yeah, maybe they only like the arms and they just discarded the rest of it. But they're definitely eating arms of people. And so the Doma guy is like, "What? These are cannibals. Like, basically, we're gonna kill them all. And like, you are all disgusting, horrible people for being cannibals." So like, he takes off his glove. He's gonna do his power or whatever. And then he oh wait, what?
Oh, so he does ask, does anybody have a blessing, a cool power in this village before I, take y'all to do something here? And everybody's like, wow, we don't know what you're talking about. And so he's like, okay.
Yeah. So then he gives us a nice little, I guess, exposition of what his powers can do. Besides just being fire, it's a specific fire. It is a flame that will only be extinguished once the fuel has fully been used up. So, say if you have a log, on the fire, and he lights it, it will never go out until that log is completely burned and nothing on it will burn anymore. It's just ash or charcoal. So
it's the JFK flame, the forever flame, for the eternal flame.
There you go. So there's a reason why that's important, is because our guy here is regenerative.
Yeah.
So the next page is just, he's literally burned this entire town to death, except we are left with the two bodies that are still alive. There's the boy, Agni, and his sister, Luna, and they won't fucking die because the flames will not go out. So he's just like a page of him on fire. His eyes are on fire. Everything's on fire. It's like he was sprayed with napalm and he's just constantly burning because the fire won't leave until it fully burns up. And he just continuously regenerates. So then he's saying like, I'm in so much pain and it's just so, and he's crawling. He's trying to find his sister and he sees her, but her regeneration, like we said, is much slower. So he basically just sees her and like she realizes that she's not going to make it. Like she's going to die because hers is too slow.
Yeah.
But they do have like a moment where he's crawling towards her and every like inch closer he has like a flashback of them and their family, and because he's old enough to remember the earth before the winter, and so he's remembering they had a sheep and and his sister loves sheep and all this shit, and so like and then like them together, and then what I'm assuming is that last night they fucked because he's like caressing her face and she's saying brother or whatever, and so this was funny. I thought, okay, so like he reaches out to her, and you think they're gonna like hold hands or whatever as she's like dying, but they like just fist bump.
It looks like a fist bump, yeah.
He literally just like daps her, and like, yeah, I just thought it was funny that she's like totally burned up, and the reason why, like, you can tell she's completely like dead-ish, or why he thinks she's dead, is because like her body is not covered in flames for the most part. It's almost all burned out except for like her one eyeball, and then like she looks more like a skeleton, whereas he, like, even his hair is still there. Like,
yeah.
his hair on his head is still on fire in there. So like he's just like looks like his arms and flesh is just completely burned and fucked up. So yeah, I don't know. He just sees her, and then he has a vision of like, is it him and his parents?
Oh, no, that's him and his sister with a child.
That's what I thought. I was
100%.
like, that's super creepy that he's like, I was gonna be a dad or whatever, like with my sister. And yeah, I don't know. It's just creepy and weird. You're supposed to feel sad, like, oh, he was gonna be a dad, and that's
yeah, but I don't know how sad you could be about that.
Yeah. Well, as a reader, it's hard to feel.
Yeah. The fist bump was weird too, because she's like, live, and I know that it's partially like she wants him to go on or whatnot, but like it felt like maybe she was giving him the rest of her power, but I don't know. Maybe that was just me inferring. Either way,
I think it was just a fist bump, but
it's just, I miss you, bro.
Yes. So now this guy is on fire constantly. He is like always in pain, always feeling the flames on his flesh, his eyeballs, his mouth, everything. He starts talking, we get like the inner dialogue. We get a montage basically of like what he's going through over the next 5 years.
Yeah, and like literally like years go by, and it shows like every year or so he learns to like do a little bit more of like being able to control something of his body while it's still being on fire.
Right. So at first he had to like learn how to breathe with flames, because every time he breathes in, it's like fire air going into his lungs and coming out. And so he had to like realize, like, just get used to breathing fire, basically, like fire air. And then after that, he could like figure out how to stand up and then walk while on fire, and just like kind of ignoring the pain. And then eventually he's able to just start walking in the snow. And he's got like, he's 8 years later, it cuts to where he's like, I am ready to get my revenge, as he like walks in the snow. And he knows all he wants to do now is kill Doma. Like, that's it for killing his sister. And he didn't even care about the people in the village. He's like, yeah, that sucked too, but obviously it's just my sister is what I
because of my sister mama, or my sister wife.
My sister wife, as what happens. So then we like get introduced, because it's 8 years later, to a kid that is in the back of a truck in like a cell where they're keeping all these other children and people. And he's been captured by the soldiers from that city, Behem Morgue. And like we said, this is 8 years later, so these aren't the same ones that we saw. These are like future ones, obviously.
Yeah, just other soldiers.
Yeah. So they pull over because the drivers are like, they're talking about like, man, these slaves will be great, won't they? Like,
yeah, exactly. At least we get that like right away. Like, oh no, they have slaves in this place. And yeah, I mean, they kind of go into these like, yeah, the slaves, and like the men work till they die, and like some of the kids, like the pretty ones go to the rich, and the ugly ones breed until they're dead. Like, just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like horrible things that they do in this place that the other guy before was like, yeah, just come along, it'll be great.
Yeah. Oh, we don't have slaves, if that's what you're worried about.
Yeah.
What? But yeah, so and then he says that they're lucky to be slaves in Behem Morgue. So it's like, or Behem Dorg, sorry, I'm gonna say it wrong, but yeah, so like he's like, even though we're doing all these horrible things to them, at least it's better than being out here in the snow, right? Like, no, yeah, it's not.
Sure.
So the driver's like, hey, I gotta take a piss, pull over. He goes to take a piss, and while he's taking a piss, I guess he kind of looks at some of the slaves, And keep in mind, this dude, it's fucking freezing outside. This dude drops. He's like a weird dude at the urinal. He just drops his pants all the way down to his ankles, just dick out and like pissing in the snow. So while he's taking a piss, some lady is like, "Hey, my boy's thirsty. Can you please give him some water?" And he's like, "Water? Oh, I got something even better." And he makes a cup out of ice because it turns out that he's a blessed person and he can control ice. Or maybe all water. I don't know. No, it's not water. I'm sorry. It's not ice.
Iron.
It's iron. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So he can like, I thought this was a cool power. And I was like, this should be an X-Men power. But like, he could just form, like all of a sudden out of his palm comes iron. I don't know if that's because he has blood and iron's in that, or if
it says he can make it out of nothing.
Right. So he can just materialize iron, but it comes out in like crystalline form. So I thought that was cool that it's all like, a molecular level iron or whatever. And so, he makes an iron cup and then he pisses in it. And then he's like, "It's fresh. It's still warm. Drink up." And she's like, "What? Are you serious?" And he's like, "Make him drink it."
Make him drink it.
Which is super creepy. Gross. And they make the kid drink the piss, which is gross.
That's pretty horrible. Yeah, and like all the other soldiers are laughing, ha ha ha, like, ha, you made him drink piss.
Yeah, and then he sees that kid that we saw at the very beginning looking through the bars, and he's like, "What are you looking at?" And then he's like, "Get over here," and then he pulls a bunch of other people out with this kid, and is like, "I'm just going to execute them for funsies," and shoots the two older people. And when he's about to shoot the little kid, we get like a weird moment where they're like looking, and then all of a sudden you hear like, "What the fuck is that?" And they just see like a body walking from far away. It's on fire though. It's a body that's on fire, like walking through the snow. And he's like, "Oh, the fuck, I don't know what that thing is, but don't worry, I'll kill him in 10 seconds flat." And he armors up, he pulls out, he gets like ironed up, I'll say.
Iron armor, yeah.
Yeah, he puts on like all these spiky armor, and it cuts to like the mind of our guy where he's seeing all the horribleness of these soldiers, and Agni's like, "I will fucking kill them." Basically, like he doesn't even say anything, but like it's just like the look of determination on his face is there.
Yeah.
And also, I should say, in the last 8 years, I don't know what his regiment for working out is.
Yes,
but dude looks fucking ripped, like
he
buff.
is jacked.
Yeah, jacked.
Fire jacked.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he can't eat anymore either. Like they don't say anything about eating, which I was like, that kind of seems impossible when you're on fire. Like, how do you eat stuff?
He can eat raw things, and it cooks it on the way down.
I guess, but that's what I'm saying is like, wouldn't it just burn before he gets it in his mouth or whatever?
Yeah.
I don't know, but either way, he's somehow been able to eat things, and he could definitely drink protein powder. I'll say that.
He's on a high protein diet somehow.
Yeah. So he's got abs for days. He's got fucking legs, his leg muscles. He's got quads. You know what I'm saying? He's been walking in the snow. He's got the muscles. So he just starts walking up to the guy, the soldier that's all ironed out, and he just walks towards him. The guy punches him. He gets on fire, and he's like, "What's going on?" And then he punches, and then Agni punches through him, right? Like
through him all the way.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, he trained martial arts and all this other shit too. Like in the 8 years while walking, he just became a master of fighting and a muscle dude. And so, but yeah, like basically he punches through this soldier and then like burns him from the inside out so much that like his core is completely like ash, and then he just
I love he like crumbles
around
him. I did like that. That was a cool little image there.
Yes. And then all the prisoners are like looking at Agni like, "Oh my god," and he's like looking at them like, I don't know, just like surprised, I guess, that it happened and that these people were there. They're probably scared that he's gonna like burn them to death or whatever. But then we get in the second chapter, we get like a little story of how what happened to them before, what happened to Agni and his sister
Yeah.
before they were in that village. And basically, they had been found by some people who were doing what the kids were doing anyway. They're just cutting. They're using the kids as like a meat source. They're cutting the arms off and eating them. And so that's like initially the fucked up thing that happens. And then one of the guys that's doing the cutting of people's arms, of the kids' arms, he realizes, hey, you're a girl, to the sister, and is like, I guess I'm gonna rape you.
Well, does he not say that it's the dad? Like, that's what I took from it. Is it not? Are they called?
I don't think so.
Are they just for? Well, they said something about like something about father, right?
If they did, I don't think they're talking about like maybe he was crying out to his dad or something.
Maybe he was forced to. I thought it was saying that like when the guy was going to rape her, it was like no father, but
really? No, it says that he turned their mom and dad into fuel.
Oh, okay.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe he was then maybe they were crying out.
I think he's crying out to dad. Like that would be even more fucked up if he's got all these happy memories about his mom and dad before, and then then with like halfway through his happy memories just turn into like the dad cutting them up and like raping the sister or whatever. But yeah, basically
that would be more fucked up then. But I'm glad. Okay,
yes,
good.
Yes, it didn't happen. But we do get a very fucked up scene where this dude walks up to her, and they just call the kids firewood because they burn their arms besides eating them as well.
Yeah,
because flesh burns, I guess. So, he's the captor has the kids tied up. He's like, the brother's like, you better not do anything to my sister, and he like hits the brother with a knife, but like he regenerates, so it doesn't do anything. And then he walks up to the girl and like zips down his pants and is just like, suck it,
yeah.
Suck
oh my
it.
God.
So the brother's like, oh my God, like, no, don't do that to her. And he does like what you would assume he would do, because obviously he can regenerate. He fucking like rips his arm off while this dude's like, he doesn't quite, I don't think he actually does anything other than get creepy with her and like stick his fingers in her mouth or whatever. He's doing like shit like that before he he's like still attacking her, but he's not like actually raping her yet. And so our main guy Agni rips off his arm, or he breaks it so they can get out of the shackle. So that hurts really bad, I would assume.
Yeah.
But the guy doesn't even realize it because he's so like into the raping that he's about to do. And Agni gets the knife and then kills the dude before anything happens. And that's how they get out. That's how they got out of there and into the town where they were helping the old people out. So and then he like has a flash. That was him like dreaming, I guess. I don't know if he can sleep. How do you sleep when you're on fire and you feel
I don't, but I would assume you wouldn't sleep either.
Yeah, but basically he has that vision, and then he has a vision of her saying live to him while she's burning alive. And then he wakes up, and I guess he like passed out after he burned that iron dude or whatever, because now the soldiers have gone. They've taken the slaves elsewhere or whatever. And he didn't save them or whatever.
Well, no, I think some of them left, but there's a couple there still.
Oh, I guess the car's left. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. But he was like, I didn't save you. I just was doing that for me.
Oh, that's right. They're the ones who were like, you saved us. We, like praise the fucking fire demon or whatever, like he's like, no, I am not.
Nah,
like, I didn't save you. I don't give a fuck about you. I was it just happened that I saved you on that.
I just wanted to kill. Yeah. And then that's where the little kid that was going to get shot was like, well, wait a minute. Like, don't leave. Like, you're like a god, basically. I think you're amazing. My name. And then just immediately, as I guess a young trusting kid would be, was just like, my name's Son. I like, my favorite food's potatoes, and just like starts going all off.
And sweets. Don't forget the sweets.
Oh, the sweets. That's right.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I honestly, do they not tell people about stranger danger in this world? Because one, this kid has just been taken as a slave prisoner to be brought to Behemorg, and then or Dorm or whatever the fuck the name of that
And
shit
Dorg,
is.
yeah.
Yeah, and then he like was
and
about
almost gets killed.
Yeah, well, he saw a kid was forced to drink piss and was almost shot in the head, and then now he's like, "Hey, fire dude, I'll be your best friend," or whatever. Like, no trauma at all in what just happened. So yeah, and the best thing, he grabs the arm of the metal dude or the iron guy, and I thought the kid was gonna light on fire.
Yeah,
because I was like, oh, maybe it's not out, and then he just like because the flames don't stop until all the fuel's dead. So if you touch one of the arms and you catch fire, and
then you're
on fire. So like basically, this is like a friend that you can never touch. It's like Rogue. It's like, you can't touch Rogue. She can't touch you. So yeah, but basically, he hates this kid following him. He's like, go away, don't follow me, I don't like you. Yeah, I saved you, but it wasn't on purpose, but the kid just kind of wears him down eventually,
and they make it very ambiguous because the kid kind of is feminine looking a little bit. It's they've got long hair, but we're
supposed to assume they're a girl.
So yeah, they're supposed to assume they're a girl. But yeah, like we're not 100% on it, and I'm saying that because it's going to play into the story a little bit later.
Yeah.
But like, so Agni just starts walking, and the kid's like, "Well, I'm just going to follow you," and he's like, "No, don't follow me." So, the kid's like, "Wow, that's cool. My name's Sun, and I'm your best friend now. Yeah, and I'm just going to follow you wherever you go."
And here's the grossest thing. This is like a total kid thing. He reaches in his pocket, and he pulls out a wrapper full of sugar that's been in his pocket forever. Like literally for like years, because he says like later on that his older brother gave him this fucking sugar packet or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, "You want to lick it?" It's like, "No, I don't want to lick your gross fucking sugar, kid."
Yeah,
that's been in your pocket for years or whatever. Yeah, it was. I just reminded me of like something from like Bad Santa or whatever, like that little kid that's just oblivious to this mean person. And
yes.
Like, I made you a pickle or whatever, like you want some candy, and there's just like chocolate all over his gross face with like snot and everything. That's why I figured this kid was like that, where like he doesn't know how gross that sugar looks. There's just like lint and like like dried bits of boogers in it or whatever. And, like, you want to lick of it, like just gross. But yeah, that's what I was picturing, because he just pulls it out of his pocket. So kids don't keep things clean. That packet's been in there for so long. Anyway, we also see that there's a bunch of people watching the bridge where this kid and him are, and there are other soldiers that were like, wait a second, that's what happened to our guys. I guess they reported like the caravan that he attacked went back to Behemdorg or whatever the name of it is, and sent people on reconnaissance back to the area. So they're like, he's definitely a flame blessed. Look at that flame or whatever. And so
yeah,
they get it wrong, at least initially. But they're like, and that kid, they'll be a great female slave for us. And like, and then one guy says, I sure would like a boy around 9. Like, wait, what?
What? Yeah, what are we talking about here?
So like, yeah, like basically these people are just like, man, we'll get ourselves a female slave. And one of the guys is like, nah, I'd rather rape a boy. That would be tight or whatever. And then like, you're like, what? Like, who the fuck are these people?
And then the story just moves on.
and then we just go away from there. So we cut to the first night where they are together, I guess, because obviously Sun is still just following him and he doesn't really want her around. And so she like huddles up next to him because he's warm, but not, he's like, make sure you don't get too close. Like, could you imagine if you rolled close to him on accident?
Actually rolled in, yeah, and then caught this eternal flame thing.
Yeah, but then we get like she explains her history a little bit about like, oh, she had a brother, and basically she got kicked out of her village. Like the brother was like, "There's too many mouths to feed here. Like you should go, but here's some chocolate and some sugar and a packet."
Good luck surviving out there. That was my favorite line.
Yeah. Like, and if you die, it's all over. So don't die. That's it.
Good luck.
That's what the older brother says to her. So,
yeah.
But she still like loves him or feels fondness for him or whatever. I guess I don't know. This is what it seems like.
She doesn't, and she didn't understand. She's young. She's like, okay, I have to go. Well, I'll see you later, right?
Yeah. And so then we cut back to like, I don't know if it's the next morning or that same night or whatever, but she wakes up and we find out that she actually has a electric power.
She too is blessed.
Yeah, she's blessed, but it's kind of like a little zapping. It's not like a full blown like electrical, like you could electrocute someone to death. It's kind of like just a zap power. So we kind of get like, oh, she could start fires by herself because she doesn't want to get too close to him, obviously. So if she lights the fire with electricity, then she can get close to that one. Also, I need one of her sleeping bags because she gets in a sleeping bag that looks like the most comfortable.
Sleeping looks like ever. A cocoon.
Yes, it just like envelops her whole body except her face, and so I was like, "Ooh, that looks like if you were in that kind of cold, that is the bag you would want to have." And so, I don't know. She falls asleep, and then he falls asleep, and then all he does is dream about Doma and wanting to kill him and reliving everything. Yeah. And then he wakes up. And what he wakes up to is getting shot in the face. He wakes up to a bullet to the face because the soldiers that were tracking them decide like, oh, we can kill him because he's asleep now. They shoot him in the head. And then the kid wakes up and they're like, cool, we'll take the kid. And as they're like picking up the kid, if you remember, they don't realize that he is a regenerative. They think he's a fire.
Yeah, they just think he's a fire guy.
Yeah, and so they thought he was dead now, but he is not. He regenerates after getting a bullet to the head, and then stands up and like just all he's got to do is touch one of these guys, and each of them will like burn up. So he touches one of them, and the guy just bursts into flames, and then they're like, "What the fuck? Kill him!" And then they just keep shooting him. And like every bullet just keeps going through him, but he's just regenerating, and all he's got to do is punch them or touch them, and they just like burn up or whatever. And so, what?
I would just say he's like with every punch and with every bullet, like the fire feels better. Like he's getting so used to it that he's like, oh, it's almost like good now.
Right, but like in a lame way. I don't know.
But yeah, I just meant this is the only part of the story that's progressing. I was like, okay, like we're getting him to be like okay with this like kind of fusion of power where he's now fire. He now can spread this fire, but he is also, he still regenerates enough to like save himself. Like he can't die, it seems. So I was like, okay, well, like I'm trying to find the like point of the story where I'm like, okay, like yes, this is why I'm still reading this.
Right.
What's going on?
Oh yeah, about this time I was like, okay, if more fire punching doesn't continue to happen, I'm gonna be like less incest and arm chopping and cannibalism and more fire punching is what I would like to see. In this
less people trying to rape people over and over again.
Yes, but what ends up happening is the leader of this unit gets smart and just puts a gun to Sun's head. So he says, if you move, I'll kill him. And that's where we're like, wait, I thought it was a girl. And so, like you said earlier, like it seems like some people realize this is a boy and some people think it's the kid's
because the soldiers, when they were saying earlier, they were like, oh yeah, there's a girl over there. That's a girl with him. Like, and they kind of alluded to like it seemed like a girl, and then now they're like, I will kill him. This must be your little brother, right? And it's like, oh, wait a minute. So yeah, there's like, that's why I said like it's kind of, they leave it up to like they will reveal here shortly, but it's still just like, okay, what's going on with this character? Like, why is that important?
Yeah,
and it's not for the reasons you'll think it's important.
Yeah, not at all. So then Agni goes like, if you're going to kill me, then kill me. But I don't care about that kid. He's not my brother. This guy won't stop following me or whatever. So, and the kid looks at him and goes like, I want to live, but please, like he's pleading to him. And then he says, if I die, then please live for me. Fire punch, man, or whatever, like, and then like then Agni. I don't want to call him Fire Punch just because the name of it's Fire Punch.
That might as well.
Yeah, might as well. So I'll just call him Fire Punch because fuck it. Agni's a weird name for me to say. So Fire Punch gets the feels. He remembers, and this is funny to me. I laughed out loud personally because it looks like they fist bump, him and his sister, when she died. Every time he remembers her, it's that fist bumping.
Yeah.
So it's like a super serious moment, and what he remembers is like little fist bumps with his sister burning alive. It's just a funny image that I couldn't stop laughing at. And it's ridiculous. But he has a moment where he's like remembering that his sister told him to live, and specifically the dap moment where they're like, fist bump. And then the guy's like, fine, I'll kill you. I don't care. I'll kill the kid too. And he punches the kid, and the kid zaps him with the electricity. And then I guess like an avalanche happens. It was kind of like unclear to me, but that's basically.
Yeah, they have this moment where it's like, okay, like, oh, like maybe I shouldn't kill you because you were blessed too. Like something weird is going on here. And then like this huge amount of snow comes and covers them all, and you're like, but then like you said, like Fire Punch Agni has like a moment of like, maybe I kind of do care. So Fire Punch is looking for Sun, and like
in the snow.
In the snow. Okay, yeah, but because he's fire, the snow's melting around him, so he's trying to find.
But you can't grab the kid, right? You can't grab the kid's arm.
Yeah.
I thought that was funny. I was like, he can like get close to him and like melt the snow with his hand or whatever, but he can't like touch him. Yeah. So yeah, that's basically he like just sits next to the kid and flares up the snow and melts it. So that's the kid's alive, and he's like, wow, thank you.
It's a miracle.
It's a miracle. And so it has like a flashback to church for some reason. Like, I always knew miracles were real or whatever. Yeah. It's like, okay.
But then it gets weird again, because this is where like, okay, I'm I've saved you, but like stay away from me. I don't really like you that much anymore. And so like Fire Punch is going to walk off again, and Sun's like, well, wait, and he's like, no, I'm good. And he's like, no, I just gotta pee real fast, Sun. And he's like, okay, well, I guess go pee. And so Sun's going pee, and Fire Punch is like, yeet, and just see it.
Just walks away.
Just walks away. So much so that like, however long it's taking Sun to pee, Sun turns back around, and like, I mean, you can see like a trail, obviously, because he leaves a
melted path.
But Sun's like, what the fuck? Like, he just left me.
Yeah. So he's following the path, and then out of nowhere, some snowmobilers come, and they're just more soldiers basically. And one of them is like, hey, hop on, kid. The kid doesn't know that they're soldiers. They don't have any insignia or anything. These ones are just,
I would say I wasn't 100% if it was a soldier yet either, because I was like, oh, it's maybe these are just people passing through.
I kind of figured because they're on a machine. Everybody else hasn't had like technology.
That's true.
So a guy in a snowmobile to me is like very obviously a bad person. But this kid is stupid. So the guy's like, hop on, I'll take you to your parents. And then it turns out he was like one of the next group of soldiers that were looking for Fire Punch. And when they find, he's like, there he is. There's my family. They find him, and it turns out he's there to kill him. So he cuts off the head of Fire Punch with a knife.
Yeah, it was cool. He like jumps off this was cool. He jumps off the snowmobile and like, ka-cha, and has like a big machete or something, like just chops off.
Yeah, it's a pretty sick looking sword. It's got like a weird curve at the end of it, so it's made for cutting heads.
And the sword is like on fire now because it touched him.
Right. But they've obviously seen, or they have the information somehow, I guess, from that this guy is regenerative because he got, they cut off his head for a reason.
Yeah.
So this soldier, has chopped off his head, sees he's still alive, and then I don't know why they do this, but the soldier has the knife in their hand, and of course, like we said, it's on fire. The fire goes up their arm, and this is where we get like a reveal that the kid's looking at son's looking at the soldier, and you see the soldier's arm now because it's burned, like the fire's burned off the jacket that they had on. And then the soldier goes, "Oh, it's Doma's flames." So the soldier knows Doma and just recognizes that the flames are there, and then proceeds to chop off their arm and then grows back. So that's like a big thing because, and we'll reveal it, fuck it, later on. He thinks that Fire Punch thinks that that's his sister. Now, you might be asking yourself, how is Fire Punch still alive later on? Well, they take his head, which is still trying to regenerate the body, and they just keep shooting it over and over and over to stop it from regenerating the body.
They wrap it in some flame retardant materials so they can like carry it. There's a bunch of other snowmobiles pull up and all these soldiers pop up, and then there's like bam, 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 just shooting the head so it can't regenerate.
Yeah,
they throw a flame retardant thing around it while they're still shooting it.
Yeah, and basically they just have to continuously keep shooting it in the head so that it stops, or that Fire Punch doesn't regenerate his body. And then that's where we find like the soldier who cut off their arm goes to pick up the body of his body that is now burned up. I guess his body, once cut from his head, is on fire or burns up finally.
Burns up, yeah. Yeah, because so, otherwise he would make two of himself, I guess.
Yes, I guess that's how it would be. So his body actually does burn up all the way finally. And then the soldier takes off her goggles and picks up the arm. And then we see it's supposed to be, it looks like his sister.
Looks like me, but obviously older. We don't know. Honestly, we don't get a reveal of that in the rest of this one.
You're just supposed to be like, oh, because they show her face, and so you're like, oh, one, it's a girl. Two, she's about the right age.
Yeah.
But why is she working for the soldiers?
And she has fast regeneration now.
Right, exactly.
Is it her or is it someone else? Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. So, like we said, they keep his head in a box in fire retardant material where they just have to keep shooting him like daily. They bring him and son to the city of Behemdorg.
Behemdorg.
It's a totally easy city name to say and remember, Behemdorg. And so they could have called it like, I don't know, Sunville or something, something nice. People, Behemdorg is definitely the name of an evil city. I'll say that. It's like, come down to Mordor, where Gorgoroth, the capital city, awaits you to this wonderful vacation.
You definitely won't become a slave and have to work your entire life.
Yeah, it's like how more evil of a city could you call it? Behemdorg. And so, yeah. But like we said, there's literally like a farm room, like a room that's got, it looks like somewhere you would plant like a garden, and they keep his head in there and they just keep shooting it. Like there's two soldiers that are always on site to shoot him in the head every 5 minutes or whatever, so he can't regenerate. In the meantime, they take Sun and they put her in like a room, or put them in the room, I should say. Like I said, it's they're actually a boy, but everybody thinks she's a girl in this moment, and that's one of the reasons why they take Sun, because Sun wakes up and he's in like it looks like a store or something, like the back of a stock room or some shit.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's someone's house or whatever.
I think it's just supposed to be it's like someone's domicile there. So
yeah, there's another girl there too, and she has also been recently captured because they're both kind of like, what's gonna happen?
There's a dog there too.
Oh yeah, there's a dog in there, and the son thinks it's a bear, which I thought was funny. He's like, oh my God, a bear. I've never seen one in real life. And then it's like, that's not a bear, that's a dog.
Yeah.
But yeah, then one of the soldiers that's like watching them is saying like we don't have pets here. We're going to eat that dog or whatever. So apparently they eat dogs.
Yeah. So the soldier's not there in the room. And so it's just the two of them talking. And her name is Nanetto.
Yeah.
And Son, again, just being so trusting right away, is like, oh, well, there's this guy, his name is Mr. Agni, and he like saved me a bunch of times, and he's like a god, and like goes all through that. And then it's like, oh, also, I have this power where I can like zap people, and they're like, It's like, well, wait a minute, you're blessed.
Yeah, Nanetto's like, you're blessed? Like, do you have an escape plan or whatever? And so, like, they come up with a plan where they're like, something bad's gonna happen. So whenever the soldiers come in here, I'll talk to the guy or whatever, and then I'll stick out my tongue. I'll give you the signal, which is me going, and like sticking out my tongue, and then you zap him, and then we'll escape.
I did like he said, like, we have to do this because they're basically probably gonna rape us girls, because they, we're either like pets to them, or we're gonna like have babies for them. And again, showing Sun is very young and naive, is like, how do people even have babies? Like, this is it's alluding because of what is about to happen, because Sun doesn't understand any of this.
Yeah, Nanetto's the one who said they're gonna rape us and make us
yeah.
Babies. So this guy walks in, and he seems like a nice guy. He's got his Steve Jobs out. He's got his like turtleneck on, and he looks like a nice guy. He's got 2 huskies with him.
Yeah, comes in, they're happy looking dogs too.
Yeah, they're kissing his face. They love this guy. He takes care of them, you know what I'm saying? And the dogs are like happy to see them, and they're like, oh, cool. And he's like, don't worry, guy, I'm a nice guy. You don't have to be scared. I'm not gonna do anything bad. And then Nanetto's like, you're a nice guy, really? And he's like, look, a dog can really tell you if people are good, right? So obviously I'm not a bad guy because these dogs love me. As like Nanetto and the dude are talking, she keeps giving like the signal, like, fucking electrocute the guy. But Sun is like thinking Nanetto's like joking around, like, ha ha ha. She's like, he totally forgot that that's a signal to zap him. So he just starts laughing, and then Nanetto's like, what the fuck? That was a signal. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. And then the guy's like, hey, let me introduce you to your job. Like, you are slaves, but I'm not a bad guy. But first, so let me just introduce you to your job now that we've talked a little bit and got to know each other. You can't eat if you don't work. And then he goes on to explain, these dogs are both boys, and they're good boys. So you two are going to have sex with them. That's your job.
Oh my fucking God. Yeah. So, and now bestiality.
Jesus Christ. What the fuck am I reading? When I knew this was happening. I was like, this comic has proven that it's trying to be edgy or whatever. The second that guy comes in with the dogs, I was like, really? Are we going here? Are we going there? And when it got, like, at first I was like, maybe I'm wrong because maybe they escaped. They came up with the plan or whatever. Or maybe he is a nice guy for some reason. I doubt it, but he's too nice. He's got anybody that wears a turtleneck and has a face like that, like just super bland looking, is a murderer. So like, and so I was just like, he's too nice, and then the funny thing is that after he's like, you're gonna have sex with him, Nanetto's like, oh my God, she kind of freaked out. And then Sun's like, sex, and like it's spelled SEKS because he doesn't know what sex is. What's sex? And then the guy explains, I want you to have sex with them because I like watching people have sex with animals. Now take off your clothes and stick out your ass. He says that in this comic. That is, I'm not saying those, that is not paraphrase.
No, those are the literal quote. Words on the page.
I cannot explain or stress how crazy this comic got at the very end, but it was already crazy and it just amped it up at the very end here. So Nanetto is still like, what? And then Sun is like, I want to go first because he, like we said, doesn't know what sex is. So he just like pulls his pants down and is like, I can't wait to show my butt. Like, what the fuck is wrong with this kid? Yeah. And then he pulls down his pants, sticks his ass out, and the guy's like, wait, you're a boy? Because he can see his balls or whatever. It's like, and like Nanetto's like, you have a penis or whatever. And then he like, it freaks everybody out, and it actually gives like a hesitant moment where the guy's like, wait, they said this was 2 girls. Like, the boys can't have sex with a boy. like he's talking about his dogs, obviously.
No, and I was like that. I was like, that's a really weird place to draw.
This is where I draw the line. All right.
Like bestiality is okay, but like no, have a boy dog having sex with a boy person.
Yeah,
like okay,
my dog's not gay. All right, it's gonna fuck a human. It's gonna be a girl.
So yeah, Jesus Christ.
Wow. Yeah, it's ridiculous, but that gives the opening for because the guy kind of like tries to attack Sun after that, and Sun zaps him, knocks him out, and that allows.
That allows them. You think that okay, now they're gonna get away because like the guy's like, oh, on the ground that hurt, and they're like, quick, we gotta get out of here.
Yeah, and as they're running away, something happens. We don't see it. Sun's like, what happened? And he falls down, and then we look, and Sun has his legs cut off. Just a whole page of a naked from the waist down boy, like crawling on the ground with stumps. Yeah, and his legs are also in the foreground.
Yeah, he's like cut off at the calf or whatever.
Yeah. And he's not even like, I mean, I guess you'd be like in shock, but it turns out the dude had an axe, or there was like another guy with an axe that was like watching, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
He came out of nowhere and just chops their legs off. And and then before they kill him, like the guy's gonna officially like kill him with an axe. The soldier that was going to have his dogs rape them runs out and goes, stop. Oh, I didn't say, I guess we didn't say they ran out of the door. So it wasn't the guy on the ground, the original guy that was going to have his dogs fuck him. It's a new guy that was.
It's a new, yeah, I guess his brother or something. And he's
yeah,
like, I don't know. He looks bulkier and bigger, but
you know he reads because he's got glasses. So.
Yeah.
All these people look like, I don't know, Harvard graduates, and then like they all have like turtlenecks and like sweater vests.
Yeah, this guy's got like a nice button down and like a sweater vest over top of it.
I don't know. They look like, entrepreneurs or something. I don't know. Like tech geeks or whatever, and then somehow they're dog rapist murderers or whatever. And but yeah, so the original dude runs out and says, "Stop! Don't kill him." Because we can use him. He's got electric powers. And then he says, guess what? You have a new job, guy. You get to be the battery, the power for the whole complex, like the whole town.
Yeah.
Like that's what we're going to drain the shit out of your life. You're just going to be a battery for all the electricity of the whole town.
Yeah. I love that they heat up something. They cauterize the wounds in the end of his legs. And it's like, we're going to strap you to this board and, plug you up and you're going to become a battery.
Yep. So that is the fate of this kid. Or it seems like that's what's going to happen. I don't know. We cut away from him. We cut to Fire Punch, who is just ahead
getting shot in the head.
Yep. Just getting shot in the head. But these guards are stupid because they shoot him and then they're like, oh, we're out of ammo. Go get ammo. They're kind of talking for a second. And I guess Fire Punch has come up with a way to combat them. He waits for the guy to run out of ammo, and as he does, he spits at them. And his spit, of course, is on fire. And he spits on one of the guys. It lights that dude on fire. And then the other guy gets lit on fire as well, and that gives him time to regenerate.
And yeah, and that's cool. His whole body just like pops out of the bottom of his head. I did think that was cool.
I was like, wow, he can really regenerate fast. Maybe he's been saving it up because he hasn't been able to regenerate. So
yeah, so he's just like, it made me think of like Cell in Dragon Ball Z,
or Piccolo. I was gonna say Piccolo.
Or Piccolo, yeah. Exactly. That's both of them are. Well, he uses Piccolo's powers.
That's right.
So yeah, that was cool. Just like pops it out all on fire, but that was kind of.
Just imagine you're a head. And then, like Piccolo, it's always like his arm, right?
Yeah.
Right. That makes visual sense. Imagine seeing a head pop out of body, a full, like 7 foot tall, muscly dude body or whatever. Like, just it would look it. Yeah, on paper it looks fine, but it seems like it would be hilarious.
It would be weird to see in like animation. Or
yeah, an anime of this would be weird as fuck. Besides, it's not even just for that, but just the content of it.
Yeah.
But that would definitely be a mature anime. You think Netflix is gonna pick this one up? I don't know.
This is their next live action series, I think.
Oh yeah, totally. You know, they did. They're looking for
Netflix is trying to be edgy now. They're trying to. They want more HBO-esque shows.
Well,
I think
if they want edge, I think they found it. We should send this to them and be like, make it into a show.
Yeah, make this what everybody's clamoring for it.
Yeah. And so then the guy who was gonna get who got more ammo comes back with more ammo, and he is now facing a full-grown fire.
Fully reformed.
Yeah. And he gets murdered.
He's fucking punched. He gets fire punched.
He gets, as the name of this book you would imagine, he gets fire punched. So then we see, like, I don't know, he gets out of that area, fire punch does, and he sees someone immediately, and who that is he's like, and it's a grown-up, more scruffy looking Doma. He's like, I know you.
Yeah, it's him, but he's got longer hair and a beard.
Yeah, and then he says Doma, Fire Punch does, and Doma's like, how do you know my name, and why do you have my flames? Why are you still alive? And he tries to use his fire power on Fire Punch again, but he still doesn't die because he's regenerating.
Yeah.
And then Fire Punch is like, you killed my sister. And then he has like this moment where he wants to like apologize, basically. Like, it's weird because like Fire Punch is about to like fully attack and kill him, and then Doma's like, will you forgive me? And Fire Punch is like, what? And I'm like, well, you wouldn't give a fuck about that. If you're Fire Punch, you're like, I'll punch your head off. You killed my sister. And then this is great. So he murdered Fire Punch's sister. And he's like, please forgive me. What should I do? I'll do anything
except die.
Well, guess what? There's only one thing I want you to do. And so he does what I'm thinking or at least he winds up to do. He yells Doma, Fire Punch does, and he goes to do like a big fire punch.
It's the most anime page of this entire comic so far.
Finally.
He's like, yeah, and this is me being like, okay, we're at least gonna get this big epic like end battle. Like, this is what I'm expecting. Like, let's have our like big manga anime like conclude, somewhat. I'm sure if there's more, but it's some kind of conclusion.
It's Fire Punch versus Fire Guy.
Yeah,
and like, this is what's fucking gonna happen.
Here we go. This is what we've been waiting for.
Yeah, and then we just cut to a page of someone editing footage.
Someone named Togata.
Yeah, and
it's a breaking the fourth wall. It's like The Office, where there's like these scenes going on, and then someone talking to the camera, and it's like, hey, yeah, like, man, this is crazy stuff going on. Like, I can't believe this happened. So yeah, this person's name is Togata, and they're
a big movie fan. They really like movies.
I love Star Wars and Home Alone, and like, he just going off on like, movies are cool, and like, I like editing things. And I found it basically everything from 1990 to 2200 the year. He's like, I like cultural history. It's really, really weird. He's like going off, and he talks about like this footage that these soldiers found.
Yeah.
And they're talking about what we just basically witnessed partially.
So, but I should say this is actually in the world, because this kid says his town was bombed by Behendorg and into nothing. And yeah, like, so we don't know where this is in relation to like time-wise of what's going on. But basically this dude's making like a documentary or some kind of like found footage movie about Fire Punch, and that's what we've been watching the whole time. I don't know how he knew, or how he had footage of like the snow scenes, or you know what I mean? Like, was everything a movie, or was it just that last part?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm assuming, I guess, for the sake of giving it the benefit of the doubt, the only parts we have on film are the part where he was the head burning in the garden, and maybe the fight with Doma.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he goes on to talk about how this guy's awesome. You know, he's a dude with a flaming dick walking around. How cool is that, or whatever? Like he's like the Human Torch. Yeah, and so like he goes and he mentions that he's kind of like he makes fun of the story because he's like breaking the fourth wall a bit, and he's saying like what kind of story is that? A dude walking around naked? Why doesn't he have clothes? And like all this kind of stuff. So it's like a weird thing that he's talking about, and so he's like, what should I call my movie project? It could be the Fire Project or Fire Snow or Red Dead Fire. And then he goes, wait, I've got it, Fireman. So like it's supposed to be a joke because obviously.
Yeah, and the only thing we're left on is it looks like maybe Doma is standing over the body of Agni. I it's hard to tell. That's what it kind of looks like because that guy's not on fire.
Yeah, or he might be looking at the body of one of the other soldiers that was burned or something. We don't know. They just leave it hanging. Doma's sitting there like looking at his hand, like if he or like his hands in front of him, like if he just used it to burn Fire Punch, and there's like a dead burned body in front of him. So that's where we end it. Yeah. So John, what did you think of that story, and what would you give it?
I kept giving the story the benefit of the doubt as I read further on, and I'm like, it's okay. Like that was really weird, and like again, maybe it was partially cultural or partially like just trying to be as edgy as possible. And again, we watch bad movies where things like this have happened, and most of the time I'm like, oh my god, that was so bad, but like I couldn't look away. Like you still was like, it's so bad it's good, right? Like you're still enjoying sometimes watching
Right.
cringy things is like enjoyable. You don't know why. It's just some people like that. I'm one of those people most of the time. But there are some things that go just that little bit too much for me. And I think this is the one I didn't get that fulfillment of enjoyment through this. Like there are things in this I did enjoy, and I was like, that is a cool story element. That's a unique thing. I mean, the art was pretty good. When he's on fire, sometimes it was a little weird if it was like multiple things happening on the page, because the flames kind of sometimes, because it's not in color, sometimes it was hard to tell exactly where things were. But for the most part, the art is good, and some of the art was, like I said, unique and cool. Like when the body parts got chopped off, or like when his the body came back the first time. Some of that was really cool. Or like when his sister died, like that page when they're right after they do the fist bump, and it's a full page spread of them. That was cool because her body is like pretty much ash except for one eye, and his body is fully flamed. So like that was cool. They had some really good art in this. And like I said, the story has cool elements, but every time it gets edgy, it does this crazy thing for what reason I don't understand, and then just moves on from it.
And then doesn't mention it ever again.
Yeah, it either gives me no resolution, no movement of the story, or no satisfaction point. Like it's so cringy, and then I'm like, oh, we're just not going to address that just happened, and we're not going to talk about it anymore. Like again, and it started off right away, like the cutting off and cannibalism. I was like, that's weird, but like I'm down with it. That's kind of creepy and cool. But then the incest happens, and then it's like, whoa. But then we moved on from it. I was like, are we not going to address what just happened here in this room? Because I guess it moves too fast, because then the people come like the next day in the plane and whatnot. But still, it's just like, what is going on? And then like the middle story meandered a little with the son kid. Like that was interesting, but like
right.
There were some good moments there. But then like, hey, we're here and you guys are slaves, and by the way, you're gonna have sex with these dogs. Like again, just like what the fuck? So I don't know. Like, I would not read it again. I don't think I care to continue this story.
Really? You don't want to find out what happens?
I might look up a synopsis of like the rest of like how this was able to continue for 8 going on now, but I don't think I care to read it. But like it's not the worst thing I ever read. Like you know what? I've read things that were boring. And I was like, why
Yeah, I
the
will
fuck
say
am I
that
reading this?
this is
It
not
wasn't boring.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you go on.
Oh, okay.
I'm the lost for words.
Okay. I would just like to interject. I'm looking at the last page of this manga, and just the idea that I just remembered this was originally in Japanese. It was reprinted in America, right? Obviously, in 2018, that's when this was reprinted in America. And it had to be translated by someone named Christine Dashiell, who had to read this and translate it into English without being a manga fan or knowing anything about manga. I'm assuming
He might be. We don't know that. You sometimes when you take those jobs, sometimes you're a fan.
Possibly, but more than likely, it's just a job, and you're just translating because you're the translator for this company or whatever. So, I mean, even if you are a fan of manga or comics, and you're translating like Berserk or whatever, you're like, wow, that's fucked up. And then you write it, and then you get to Fire Punch. You're like, what the fuck? Like he had to write, or they had to write. I'm sorry, it's a woman, I think, Christine. They had to write, like, my dogs are going to fuck you.
I want to have a baby with you, brother.
Yes. Yes, that is what they had to translate. So
I can't imagine that in my head.
Yeah, like being the person that just gets this cold, no idea what manga or comic books really are or anything. You're not a fan necessarily. And
what if this is her first one?
yeah. What if this is their first job? Oh man, can you imagine? Like, what have I gotten myself into? And what are comics like nowadays?
I can imagine this. Like, this is your first one. We're gonna start you off with an easy one. Like, this one's new on the market. It's real popular, so it's gonna be great. Here you go. Translate this one for us. And yeah, she's like 2 pages in, and she's like, "I want to have a baby with you, brother."
So what the fuck?
What the fuck?
Yeah, just oh man, yeah. I can't imagine that. I like to actually imagine that it is their first time, like you said, translating, and they don't know anything about comics except maybe they read comics in the 90s with like Image or something. Where Image was edgy, Spawn was edgy, or whatever.
Spawn's edgy, yeah.
The Watchmen was like, whoa, and then like now they read this, like, what the hell? But yeah, like for me, everything in this book was just so. It was like a 12-year-old edgelord wrote it or something, maybe a high schooler. Like if I watched a bunch of exploitation movies and stuff when I was in high school and thought that was cool to make it like super edgy, and you're just like making it edgy for edgy's sake.
Yeah,
like that's what this comic is like to me. Like, okay, we're gonna start off with cannibalism, then move right into the incest, then we're gonna move right into the what's it called, like where you burn everybody alive in the village, and then he's gonna be on fire,
and then there's sex slaves, and there's like evil soldiers, and they're drinking urine, forcing people to drink urine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, drinking urine. Then look, the violence in this book isn't shocking at all because everything else is so shocking. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like when you have a kid drink piss before you get punched through your chest with a fire punch, the fire punch doesn't seem that bad because I just watched a mass genocide of a town, a brother fuck his sister, and people chopping their arms off and feeding it to people. So it just doesn't seem that crazy when like the violence in it doesn't seem like cool or whatever when all these other things are like taking all the edginess out of the book. So there's only so much edgy you can take, you know what I'm saying? Like it's like if you had an action movie where like here's your hero and he like just does a regular like fight scene where he punches someone, but the rest of the movie is just explosions. And then like when he goes to do something, he just there's a punch and a kick and the guy's out or whatever. It's like that's less exciting because you've amped up all this crazy shit going on. So if that was the point of it, like maybe I missed entirely the joke. Maybe this is a big joke. Obviously, there was supposed to be some comedy in it because at the end, he breaks the fourth wall and he knows this is a ridiculous book to a certain extent because there's a guy on fire walking around. But the funny thing was, that's what he thought was ridiculous. He wasn't like, brother and sister incest, cannibalism, dog fucking. What is this book? He was like, there's a guy walking around on fire.
Can you believe this guy's on fire and his wiener's out?
Yeah, that was the shocking thing that the author or that the fourth wall guy thought was shocking or whatever, or like funny or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
what? Like, that's the ridiculous part of this book. So I don't know if I'm just misreading it. I mean, obviously this book has a following. Like, the reason why I read this book was because I was like, books like Berserk search or whatever, you know, like manga that is up to the level of Berserk coolness or badassness. And this was on that list for someone because I looked at the list. I'm like, oh, that sounds, and the synopsis for this book is fucking ridiculously misleading. I mean, obviously it is a mature title, but the synopsis that I read for this book sounded so badass. It was just like a dude and his sister get burned alive in a village. He is blessed with regeneration, so he's constantly on fire. Like he's reborn as someone on fire, but you know, now he's getting revenge for the man who killed his sister. That's what the book.
And like, yeah, like that's the whole synopsis.
Yeah. And I'm like, that sounds badass. Like, dude on fire, walking around, murdering people or whatever. It's like, that sounds cool and like ridiculous and fun. But then like I open the first page and it's like arm chopping off. I'm like, all right, cannibalism. That's weird, but I'll run with it. And then it was like weird incest scene with brother or sister. Like, okay. And then it's like, yeah, it just progressively is not about the dude on fire. It's about all these other edgy parts.
Yeah.
That like just totally take the wind out of the sails of the fireman, you know, the fire punch, you know, like it should be called Fucked Up Incest Dog Movie or whatever, you know, or dog book or whatever, because that's what would be more accurate to what the title or what the book is about or what's in it, I guess, the content inside.
Yeah.
But yeah, so did you rate it? You didn't rate it yet, right?
No, I didn't rate it. I was holding my breath. And again, I'm so in saying this, I'm taking this as I'm still coming, you know, I'm just more reading manga now. This is only the fourth or fifth manga I've read fully.
I will say, hey, let's okay, comparing it to the manga we've read. Another book that you could say is similar to this, maybe in the shock factor and everything, would be MPD Psycho.
Yeah.
But that one didn't seem like it was doing it for like shock factor's sake. Like, sure, you were like, holy shit, but it fit the story and the tone of the book.
No, yeah, and all the things that were shocking, they still addressed and were part of the story.
Right.
It was the shocking things in this happened, and then they moved on from it.
Yeah. Yeah, it seemed like they're doing it for shock's sake, and then like, anyway, back to the story that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it was just like, what? Like, if you cut out all those scenes and you just had the brother be a hunter and he had deer meat and he was the guy that supplied the meat for the town because he goes hunting the next day.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to chop his arm off. He can get deer or whatever, apparently. And so, yeah, you could have him be the hunter for the town. And then,
yeah, it could be like when accidents happen and like people freak out and then he's like, oh no, it's cool. And his arm comes back.
Exactly. You could show that or whatever. And
or like the brother and sister just being close. And like it could be like, oh, like, you know, like him holding his sister at night, just being like, it'll be okay. I know mom and dad aren't here, but one day this will all be okay. And she's like, I love you, bro. She's like, I love you. He's like, I love you too. And like that, you just get
a regular, normal relationship.
Yeah. Like the incest, I have no idea why that had to be there, why that had to happen.
Exactly.
If I'll tell you this, if that is his sister and it comes back and she's pregnant and had the baby and he has a son now. Now I kind of do want to know. Oh
so maybe that's what keeps people coming back. The shock factor just has to ante up every time about his life and story or whatever. Who knows? But either way, I mean, like if that was the story, if what we just said happened, and then like the dude, the soldier makes the kid drink piss and gets punched through, I think that scene would have had a bit more cachet. Like it would have felt like, obviously you can have bad guys do bad stuff and you're like, holy fuck. I felt like, so like when he punches through him, that would have been like, whoa, cool fire punching scene.
Yeah.
But then, you know, when we get to the like dog fucking scene, it just seemed like that was like, it doesn't have, they could just do the regular, like, you're going to be sex slaves or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, why does it have to be dog fucking? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like if you're going to have a scene like that, obviously these are bad people who do have slaves and they've talked about sex slaves before. Why do the dogs have to be the fucking the people? You know? Why?
And they go as far as like the kid drops his pants and puts his ass up in the air, like,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And it's like, whoa.
Yeah. I'm really glad they didn't show the dogs fucking kids or whatever. Maybe they couldn't because it's like, you know, that would be too far. But
I don't know. I hope so. But like, I don't. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was just, I just don't understand, like, things like that. I'm like, you didn't need that in this book to be cool or show. You know what I mean? Like, you could definitely, like, I feel like Berserk has shocking moments, but when they happen, it's for a reason. It's part of the story, like you said, and they don't just sweep it under the rug and be like, well, that happened anyway. Now we're here or whatever. It's like there's a, like, maybe in the next volumes the dog fucking comes back up and there's a point to it. I don't know, but I highly doubt it because, you know, unless they're really laying seeds for fucked up things to happen later on, which might be the case. Maybe I'm
No.
wrong. I don't know. Hey, if you're a Fire Punch fan, let us know what happens.
Yeah, you know what? If you all the plot points that we pointed out that made no sense as far as like having the story progress, if they all do, please let us know in the comments of like, oh no, this comes back and this comes back. Like, please let us know because I might look up some synopsis and stuff, but I'm not going to read any more of this.
Yeah. That's how I feel as well. Unless, I mean, hey, like I said, if you're like the biggest Fire Punch fan and you can describe it in such a way in an email that makes me want to read it,
yeah,
maybe I will check out the other volumes.
If you guys are listening and you're like, no, you don't understand, this is an amazing story, and you want to subscribe to our coffee, and you're like, no, you have to read the next one because this gets even wilder. If you want to do that, we will, because that's what you guys want. But as far as like just us trying something, this one wasn't for me. But if you feel it can be convincing
now.
just to keep reading.
Yeah, they're gonna make us read this.
Anyway, so overall, I would say I'm good. This is going to be my lowest one, and it is not to do with the actual like interesting plot points and the art. Like, again, those things I did enjoy and were good, but I cannot, in good faith of everything we've done on this podcast and everything we've read, give it the same that I've given even our baseline of Batman Hush. So this one I am going to give a 4. I am going to give a 4. I'm still going to be.
Wow, that's higher than I thought you were going to give it.
Well, I thought about giving it lower. I really did. But I'm going to be generous and say again, like, the plot points I liked, and the art was good overall. So I will give this a 4.
Well, that's very generous of you, John. So while reading this, I was about the time after he punches through the iron blessed soldier or whatever, the one that made the kid drink piss. I was just kind of like, after that, and they're, you know, in the snow or whatever, and he meets Sun, and like Sun won't stop following him. I was just kind of like, I feel like I'm done with this story. Like, I was forcing myself to read it just so I could get through the manga so we could do it for the podcast. I really didn't like this manga. Like, and that's the other thing about this was one of the things I was telling you. I thought like one of the maybe the tropes or the biases I had against manga before I started reading it, you know, where I was just like, oh, that's the stuff that is either super edgy and doesn't quite live up to it in story or whatever, or is just tonally all over the place. And I feel like this book was both of those things. It was like the main story is super simple and straightforward. You know, guy's sister gets killed. He's got powers. He goes to get revenge.
Revenge, exactly.
He's on fire. Cool. That sounds basic and whatever. The edgy stuff was the only thing in this book that I thought was even like interesting, as far as just like, what the fuck? Like that's all I remembered from the story. I didn't remember anything in between Like I didn't remember Sun was in the middle of the book until we started looking at it again. After he punches through the guy, and then I thought it went straight to the dog fucking or whatever. Like that's like literally I was like, and then he captures the kid, and then and I'm like, oh wait, there's a whole middle section.
There is a middle section, but the most important thing where there was that's how they capture his head. But like, yeah, I mean, basically the story moved from piss chopping off head, dog fucking.
Right, but there was a bunch of shit in the middle of those things that I was just like, why is this even here? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
no, that's what I'm saying. For like important plot points, though, it was piss cup, punch through body, cut off head, dog fucking.
Right. So those are the things that I remembered, even though there's multiple tens of pages in between each of those points that I didn't give a fuck about. So. I got really bored reading this, which is weird because you would think for all the craziness in this book, it would be like, what? I must continue. What else could he do? How can he go crazier than what just happened? That's the ultimate sin is I got bored through it. I wanted it to continue. Also, I didn't think the art was that good. Just compared to like the books I do like Berserk or even like Claymore or whatever. Like I read those books and I'm like, there's some solid art in this stuff, and they look different and everything. This just kind of seemed like average, typical art or whatever. It wasn't like good. It wasn't bad. It was just like, yeah, that's art. It gets the point across. I didn't notice anything crazy or like amazing with it. I thought some of the people had weird faces, but whatever. Like when we read MPD Psycho, something about that dude's art was very like clean and precise. It stood out. It really fit the serial killer vibe.
Yeah.
Whereas this just looked like regular art to me. So
well, I said for the most part, like that's what I mean. It was like it was good, and it was like I could tell everything was going on. Sans, like I said, sometimes some of the fire things that was a little bit, and I think it would have been better if those were in color because, like I said, that I think that then you would have been able to tell some of the line work.
Yeah, that's just the medium. You're gonna have that problem in any manga. That's like. As an American or as someone who's used to reading American comics or North American comics or that style of comic, the color helps you determine or distinguish between things like the fire, right? Because they're trying to show flames, but it's just wispy lines, right? So you're like, okay, I guess he's on fire still. But sometimes I'd be like, wait, is he out? They're like, no, it's not out. It's just we're so close pulled into his body that the flames are outside of our camera view or whatever.
Yeah.
So we don't see the flames when we're that close to his face or whatever. So things like that, except if it's on his eyeball. That's usually how you do if he was still on fire, is one of his eyes would be on fire as well. Yeah, it was just the one eyeball. But yeah, so yeah, I'm going to give this book, and I think I can't remember what our lowest book is. Do you remember? I don't remember.
It's Batman Hush.
No, that's not our lowest book.
It's not
not my lowest book. I know I gave one a 4 sometime, and it was because I got bored. I'm pretty sure through it. So
I don't recall offhand.
Okay, I don't remember what it was either, but I know I gave one book a 4. Everything else has been a 5 or up. And I'm gonna give this book a 3 because I just didn't want to continue it. I didn't feel like any of it was kind of like cool or original. It just seemed like your average, revenge story with like the twist of he's on fire, and then not enough explanation of like how he got the power to punch through people, or you know what I mean, like that kind of stuff. Is like you can't just punch through a body. You know what I mean? Like it would be better if he never does that kind of stuff. If he's punching them and they just catch on fire and burn to a crisp, that happens. But like. That should be should be able to like punch through people or whatever.
Yeah, but the fact that exactly he punched through a guy.
Yeah.
Or like you said, like he had to survive all those time, but in that time frame he went from like a scrawny average 15-year-old to like a jacked like Goku level-esque like body build.
He is eating 5,000 calories plus a day.
Yeah.
And walking up mountains or whatever. You know what I mean? Like but then also like how does he eat? Like, to me, that was like a big problem. I was literally like, okay, he just told you how hard it was to breathe. So, like, I know he can regenerate, but that takes energy, and energy comes from food. So how does he? I guess you could. I mean, if we're having to, this is like the sign of a badly thought out like idea or whatever, right? Like we're having to fill in gaps ourselves on, and some people might go like, well, you're nitpicking, or like that's not the point of the book. Just accept it and move on. But like, I agree with that to some extent, because like obviously I like things like Swamp Thing or whatever, right? And you're just supposed to go like, okay, he was caught on fire and he fell into the swamp and now he's the Swamp Thing. And they at first don't explain that, and that was what they did in the 70s. But then in the 80s, when Alan Moore came around and rewrote the origin of Swamp Thing, or added to the origin of Swamp Thing, he made it like, oh, this is like he's an earth elemental who's been like the body is possessed, and there's a whole understanding of why this happens. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think like whenever I read new comics, I kind of feel like this isn't the 1970s anymore. You know what I mean? Like that might have been okay in the 70s to have such a simple explanation where we don't think about like, how does he eat? How does he, how does he stay muscular or whatever? You know what I mean? But like, you got to give us something, like be like, oh, there's a magic bean or whatever that, like, like sensu beans or some shit. You know what I mean? That's why they do that in Dragon Ball, because it's like, okay. But they always have to show him fucking training to get to the next level. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I just felt like there was enough stuff that was, I'm not going to give it the benefit of the doubt and let them skip these points in my mind, at least. I'm holding it against them because they didn't build the world out enough to me. We're thrown in here. There's not enough explanation. It felt like a kind of a half-baked idea.
Especially you're saying this and saying that makes me think like, yeah, like this is the introductory one too, where usually that would be the thing that you would say is, oh, there was too much explanation of like the backstory, and
right.
I mean, we didn't really get much of any of that. So.
Well, and the thing is, like, some people like the first volume of Berserk is kind of like that, where you're just thrown in and this is happening and stuff's going on and it's shocking and like, what? But like with that, it was like you could tell in the background the guy had ideas for the world that were like, there were laws established. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you could just feel like this guy has established the laws of this world already, and he's writing this book. We don't know what the laws are, and things are happening we don't understand, but the laws are there. And I felt like that with like Swamp Thing or whatever. At the beginning, they didn't have those laws. It was just like, it's a book about a swamp man. And when you're a little kid, that's fine. But then when in the 80s, when Alan Moore redoes the origin of it and like introduces all this complex background stuff, that's when you can go back and read it now, and now it feels better because the world has been more complete or whatever. You know what I mean? So I could go back and read the 70s stuff and it feels like, okay, now I know. It's like it's got a firm foundation. Whereas this, I mean, I haven't read through volume 8, but I didn't feel it felt like, 70 Swamp Thing, where like there was no intent on there being any explanation for how he becomes a swamp man or why he's a swamp man or any of that stuff. It was like, this guy's fire punch, accept it and move on. You know what I mean? Like that's it. He is on fire and you're not supposed to question anything. Just continue the story forward in your mind. So, or like just accept that in your mind and enjoy the story. And for me, I just couldn't. I couldn't, like, because you had the crazy moments right at the beginning. Like we said, there's literally cannibalism, genocide, and incest within the first 10 pages of this book. And then the story doesn't feel like there's any foundation behind it. And then on top of that, it was boring in the middle. So I was just like, I am not enjoying this at all. So I'm going to give it, like I said, a 3. That is my justification for it. Like I said, maybe we're wrong and we don't understand Fire Punch. If you feel like that, definitely email us at planestrains.comicbooks, all one word, at gmail.com, and or Facebook or any of that stuff. Message us on one of those things. Let us know how wrong we were, and maybe you can tell us, like, it gets so much better. It's got so much lore. It's such a rich world. I mean, they did establish there's like a witch, an ice witch, and stuff like that, but it didn't seem like it had anything to do with this storyline other than the world is covered with ice. So, like, as far as I know, they never bring that up in the future at all. It's just that's what this one witch did one time, and now the world's covered with ice, and now you're here. has nothing to do with the rest of the story. So that's what it felt like, at least.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's what I think. Anything else you want to bring up that I haven't mentioned or talked about?
No, I think we covered it all.
Okay.
I'm good with leaving the Fire Punch saga alone for forever.
Unless you guys want us to read it and talk about it, and then you can donate to our one of our tiers on
Coffee.
That's right. That's what it's called.
I
wanted to say Patreon, but yeah.
Patreon, yeah.
So yeah, like you're saying.
ko-fi.com/Plain Trees and Comic Books, all one word. We've got a couple tiers on there. You can donate to suggest, and we'll suggest a comic for us to read. We'll make sure it gets on our list here for one of our closer future episodes. Matt's also doing, if you like Matt's minis and his Swamp Things, he's doing specifically the Hellblazer run that coincides with Swamp Things, so that you kind of get the best of both worlds at the same time. And that's one of our tiers on there. And what is it, like that one's $3?
Yeah, that's our $3 tier.
Yeah, so check if that's something you like. Check it out. And we definitely have a lot of fun stuff in the pipeline. So if you guys are interested in signing things, definitely sign up for a coffee, because we have everything there too. That's a good all-in-one place to see like everything that came out that week. You don't have to necessarily go to all of them if you don't want, but we do have our Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, where all of we have the exclusive stuff there. So what do we read next week?
Next week we're going back to our old buddies, Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, one of our favorite creator teams. We had to give ourselves a little mouth rinse, get the taste out of our mouth from Fire Punch.
This sounds so good. I feel like I have my heart was like, oh, that's right. I feel a little comforted. Yeah, it's like a binky, like, oh.
Yeah. And so we are reading Daredevil Yellow, which is part of the Marvel Color series, what they call it, from Tim Sale and Jeff Loeb. Previously, we had read Hulk Gray, and this is Daredevil Yellow, so it's part of the same concept, I guess. Is that it's as far as I know, it's going to be like Hulk Gray, where it's like an origin story. It's like the origin of Daredevil retold. So should be cool.
And he'll have his yellow suit, I assume.
Yes, that's why he has his yellow suit, because it's the original Daredevil. If you didn't know, Daredevil's original suit was yellow, not red. So
yeah, that's because he's color. That's because he's blind, so he didn't realize the wrong color.
He always thought it was red and didn't know. That would be fucking hilarious if they did that. Like, if someone had to have done that in a comic before, or at least had the idea. Like, I can see Frank Miller when he's like writing, being like, and the reason why, because he always gives like reasons why things happen, like why Batman has this thing or that thing.
Yeah,
it's like the reason why I wore yellow for the first year was because I was blind.
That would be hysterical if he was like, he met up with like Spider-Man or someone later, and he's like, yeah, and they're like, oh man, devil, like that's crazy. It's like, yes, the red devil of justice, and they're like, what do you mean red?
You're yellow.
He's like, my costume, it's red.
How do we break this to him? Yeah, so that would be funny, and that should be a webcomic of some kind for sure. Just that little panel of like, the red devil of justice, it's like red, yellow, son of a bitch. Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, we're gonna read Daredevil Yellow, and like we said, check it out if you want to read it beforehand, or you can have us spoil it for you. But we will see you guys on the next one. Be sure to check out all of our medias and everything that we talked about, and have a. Oh wait, I want to redo that section of that. And be sure to check out all of our medias that we talked about: Coffee, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. That's what it's called. Twitter. And I was gonna say tweeter for some reason. And be sure to tell us if Fire Punch is your favorite book and how wrong we are. Maybe we will recheck it out if you give us a good enough reason and you fight for it. Give us your passionate reason for why it's awesome, and maybe we'll check it out again. But until next time, we'll see you guys later.
On the next one.
Bye.